My name is Mark Stevenson. I work with the Highlands Ranch Historical Society, and we are here today at my home in Highlands Ranch conducting an oral history of you. So Paul McKeague is assisting on the video today. The results of this recording will be sent down to the Douglas County History Research Center as a repository and for archival purposes for people to watch and listen to, and maybe get some insight of what it was like in your experiences working on the Phipps Ranch in the late 60s and the late 70s. Why don't you tell me, and for the transcriber's benefit who will transcribe this tape, tell me your full name and how to spell it. Tell me when and where you were born.
Okay, it's Roy E., middle initial E. Dixon, D-I-X-O-N. And I was born in 1949 at St. Luke's Hospital in Denver, Colorado. And come from a diversified family background. My parents were heavily involved in ranching, farming, aerospace out here at the old Martin Company. And
did your father work for Martin at that point?
Yes, he retired from the Marine Corps for 2 weeks, and you'd think with the ranch operation we had here and the joint operation in Norton, Kansas, at Farm and Ranch, that'd be more than enough. 2 weeks later, he's out at Martin Company and aerospace engineer out there.
What did he do for them?
And some of that stuff was classified, but it had to do with he had 7 research laboratories out here, including the colonization concept of the moon at that time. He worked in the last stages of the relationship that Martin Company had of the Mercury capsule, and clear throughout the Gemini, because Gemini was boosted by launch vehicle was the Titan II. Right. And the first, I believe, 3 launches Apollo was on the Titan. And clear up till his death, December 3rd, 1967, heavily involved with that, plus ranching and agricultural politics and other issues, oil and gas.
You know, it's not called Titan Road down there off of 85 for no reason.
You're right. Yep. Right. Well, he used to move the missiles out of Waterton and take them down by Blakely Junction. Eventually, worked their way out to the old Maury Air Force Base, and that's how they transported them to their location, different places in the United States.
Yep, they did. You mentioned that your father had a ranch?
Yes. Where the Chatfield Reservoir is now. Yeah. We had a ranch there. We leased it from Four Corners Uranium. 2 ladies had that, and I think they're in Utah, southeast or southwestern Colorado. I really don't remember, but we leased that operation. And of course, you know the history of the flood of 65 and the building of the Chatfield Dam.
Did you live at this ranch in your early days?
The one that my parents had?
Yeah.
Yes.
And so you lived there?
Lived there, and we lived in town here. And I went to Littleton High School, graduated in 1968.
Okay. What was your first experience with the Phipps Ranch?
And Mr. Phipps and Bob Swafford wanted me to get more involved in their day-to-day learn their day-to-day operations of pretty dynamic cow-calf operation, but they also wanted me to learn the business aspects of it.
So let's back up a bit. Mr. Phipps owned the Phipps Ranch.
Right.
We know that. Who was Bob Swafford?
He was the general manager of all the ranches that Mr. Phipps had.
And how many ranches were there at that time?
Well, let's see, there was the headquarters, the Highlands Ranch, the Cheese Ranch, the East Ranch, the North Ranch, the Plum Creek Ranch, the South Ranch, the Douglas Ranch, the Comanche Creek Ranch, and the Quarter Circle Bell. I believe that covers them.
Why, that's quite a few.
Yes.
At that point. And your connection with the Phipps people in particular, did your family have a relationship with Mr. Phipps or
Yes.
Mr. Swafford?
Both. Very, very close relationship with Mr. Phipps and the Swaffords, and Bud Morgan too, as that relationship evolved with.
So who was Bud Morgan?
Bud Morgan was what you might say right under Bob Swafford. He was the foreman of all the ranches.
I see.
And he was management, and darn good cattleman, darn good cowboy.
Had he worked with Mr. Phipps for a long time at that point?
I believe so. I believe at least 15, 20 years.
Okay. Normally people advance up
Yeah.
in an organization,
Yeah.
so I assume he'd been there for a while, but I didn't know how long he'd been there. My only memory of Bud Morgan would be is that he and his wife, Marion, were living down in a little house by Plum Creek.
Yes. And
when the 65 flood occurred, and their house was pretty much
devastating.
Unusable after that flood because of the water damage at this point.
Yeah.
That's good. So, because of a family connection, you ended up doing something at one of the Phipps ranches starting while you were late in high school, I guess.
Yeah, and late in high school, that mainly centered here, in Littleton, Colorado, at the Highlands Ranch and the adjoining ranches of the Highlands Ranch.
How big was the Highlands Ranch at that point?
In acreage?
Yeah.
Well, headquarters.
Or boundaries.
In boundaries, see, we had 35,000, and down west there, that's about another 5, so that's 40,000. With little travel, this side of the interstate, probably about 45,000.
So quite a large range.
Quite, yeah.
For this
And
area.
most of it, in a sense, contiguous.
Yeah.
The only thing that divided the east and cheese was the Daniels Park Road, and county line divided the North Ranch.
I see.
And the North Ranch is where we put the bulls at when we took them off the cows, and we also had dryland wheat there.
Yeah. We ran into somebody who sent us a transcript from someone who leased some of the North Ranch land in the late 20s.
Oh my goodness.
And the transcript said at that point they were living on a little farmhouse not too far from County Line Road and Dry Creek Road and Colorado Boulevard. And it's from this fellow named Kistler who had named that part of the ranch the Diamond K North.
That's okay, Diamond K North, I didn't know that.
And at that point, there wasn't much else around there at that point, and the kid eventually went to Littleton to school.
In the early 60s, there wasn't much around there.
There wasn't much there then either. Yeah,
Broadway was gravel from Broadway Boulevard to the ranch when I first moved there.
Yep, I heard that at this point. So your first memory of working with the Phipps people at one of the ranches there was when you were late in high school?
Yes, late in high school and spring roundup and fall roundup. Then in January, due to lice, we bring all the pears in and run them through the hydrovat, vaccinate, or not vaccination, but a dipping, like a dipping vat. It sprayed them, and because about the second, third week, about the third week of January, we hit them because of the lice problem, and kind of the same principles: spring roundup and fall roundup. We did sort the calves off.
Was that your first experience in the cattle business? Or
It's born into it.
You had your own family experience.
Yes, there in Norton, Kansas, south of Norton, Kansas. My granddad, Earl Moody, had about 600 head cow-calf operation, over 1,000 acres of wheat and other crops. And so when my dad, and my dad was a career Marine, but we always had our interest also in farming and ranching back there, with my grandparents.
So how often were you back in Kansas?
All the
During
time.
this experience as a kid?
All the time throughout the year. Anytime there was a break or anything like that, we were loaded up and we were heading that way. I don't care if we're stationed on the East Coast or the West Coast or we're overseas. Had to pay attention to family business too. Mm-hmm. And we're a very active family, but I'm always with my mom and dad. I mean, you'd think that they, some parents don't have time with their kids. With all the involvements that my parents had, they're very inclusive.
Mm-hmm. Good. So you had the experience when they asked you to work on breaks and summers at the ranch.
Oh, yes, yes.
Spring roundup, for example, what was your responsibility there?
Gathering cattle, we'd saddle up and we'd hit the perimeters and work our way in, bring the cat, work your way, your cattle towards the corrals. And then you sort, like I say, the pairs off the mamas.
Yep.
And then you jump off your horse and you'll take turns castrating, you take turns vaccinating. And dehorning, we use a dehorning paste, as babies. And try to avoid any trauma to the animal as they got older. And, that way, and like I say, you're taking the trauma out of it, so you're improving the health and the average daily gain, really, at childhood.
So to do those activities, you had to ride. And I assume you learned to ride at an earlier age.
Yeah, probably, 5, 6, 7 years old.
Yeah. Who taught you to ride?
I would have to say my granddad and my dad. And my mother took an active interest because she used to be quite the horse person too.
Yeah. When you were growing up, did you experience any of the traditional cowboy contests, whether it be calf roding or bronco busting or any of those things?
Are you asking, did I rodeo or did I get into mischief on the ranch?
Well, both.
Cowboy.
Well, both.
And, yes, I tried the riding events for a while. And I did get hurt 3 times, but that isn't the reason I quit the riding event. So one day I woke up and I thought calf roping and team roping was a lot better for me. And like I say, it wasn't because of any injuries that I did have. I had my fair share of broken ribs. And then in 1976, Scott City, Kansas, I made the mistake of dealing with a bull again at the fairgrounds in Scott County, and broke some ribs, cracked my nose, took a horn across my forehead, had my shirt and pants ripped off, and that bull fell in love with me. It didn't want to let go of me.
Guess so.
And it was one of those deals, I'm going, man, when's this going to end?
Yeah, it was a long, short 8 seconds.
Oh, it is, when you have a bull tap dancing on you, life seems to be an eternity,
So you thought better of it and thought not to do that after that.
And I thought, there's a reason quite a few years ahead ago that I didn't do this, and I haven't done it since that adventure in Kansas.
Good. So summers and breaks, you're at the Phipps Ranch doing all the activities associated with what was needed.
Yeah, what was needed. I mean, and that's one thing, like I say, Mr. Phipps and Bob Swafford wanted me to learn, just like my parents, my grandparents, everything and anything. You just don't focus in one area. If you want to be a good business person, a good cattleman, learn it all from the bottom up. And
I suspect that everyone who was a ranch hand at the Phipps Ranch was not encouraged by the foreman or the owner to do that.
This is true.
Were you singled out because of family connections or some other reason?
Well, it's kind of like working for Dr. Beeman at LIttleton Large Animal. They saw things in me that I didn't see in me. And they guided me, they mentored me. And yes, you're right. Other people didn't get the focus like I did, but they saw potential.
Yeah.
Quote unquote from Mr. Phipps.
So they took you aside and said, let's work together, and you need to understand, rather than just cowboying, other portions of being in the cattle business if you want to be in that as a career.
And that's why Mr. Phipps would take me down to the livestock exchange, to some offices down there for the business that he had. He wanted me to see that. Down on 17th Street, that's where that is where the hardcore brains of paperwork was done, the crunching of numbers. And still, to this very day, you reflect back on those numbers, the crunching, the business, the professionalism, and that intensity. It's like Mr. Phipps and my parents and Bob Swafford always used to say, we're generally on top of the big things, But it's those little things that'll sneak up on you, and those are the ones that can hurt you.
When you're speaking of crunching of numbers, could you elaborate a bit on what kind of things were being measured that were important in the cattle business?
Anything and everything on day-to-day operations, because you're not only doing break-even analysis of your cattle. Okay, we put so much into this cow. We put so much in this newborn calf, and at weaning we have so much invested here. But you also you have your day-to-day operations of the equipment used on your place, the tractors, Don Cole on the dozer. That takes money, and you have to pay your people. Everything that it takes to turn the lights on, and everything has to be figured in. A lot of people, even to this day, they put the cattle out on their pasture, and they don't figure the value of their pasture. It's no different putting cattle in the feed yard. You have yardage per day per head that you charge. You got the markup on the feed. You should charge yourself markup on your own feed.
That you're growing.
Yeah, that you're growing. You should mark up the cubes that we fed the cattle here at Highlands Ranches. You should mark up the alfalfa hay.
Was that a common practice at that point?
With fine-tuned ranchers, yes. And long before I was born.
This was long before the days of spreadsheets and computers, too.
And that tablet you have there, you'd be amazed. Well, you probably wouldn't be amazed, but people wrote down stuff and didn't have the calculators. You knew math. You really knew math, and you would write it down, and you'd figure it out on paper, and you create kind of a sense of spreadsheet on another tablet. And we need to get back to that. I love my computers and all that when I do different formulations, not just in nutrition and animal health, but you're doing break-even analysis for a producer. Sit down and have that piece of paper there and that pencil there, and make sure, because you'll find something where that computer might miss, and you may only be talking 2 cents per head per day of an animal, but multiply that, say, by 1,000 head of cows per day at 2 cents. That's a lot of money. And that's the difference between keeping your operation active or foreclosure.
It's pretty significant then to be able to do that.
You have to. You should. Is it neglected? Sadly.
Yeah. So was Mr. Phipps somewhat of a pioneer or a trendsetter in that area, or did all the big ranchers do this?
All the good big ranchers do it. Now, Mr. Phipps being a trendsetter, you dadgum right he was. All successful Bob Norris that we talked about, T-Cross Ranch, a trendsetter. Lassiter Ranch, Beefmaster Cattle at Matheson. Mr. Lassiter was a trendsetter. Successful people are trendsetters, where and most successful people like that are humble. Yeah. Mr. Phipps is a very humble person.
In what areas was he a trendsetter?
Boy, I'll tell you what, going back to in Pennsylvania, in the multiple industries, the coal industry, the various utility industries, the telephone industry we talked about, agriculture, not just in cattle, but he knew crops. And there's several years we just weren't alfalfa hay. Well, he knew the importance of diversity of crops. We raised dryland oats, we raised dryland barley, dryland milo, 1,500 acres of pivot irrigated alfalfa down along the Plum Creek. And he'd venture into cane hay, like Sudex. The first Sudex hay I ever came across was at the Plum Creek Ranch, or the Highlands Ranch.
Was this for sale externally as well as internal purposes?
Most of the stuff we kept were internal. And we always tried to keep 3 years of alfalfa on hand in case of drought like we're in right now.
When you were there in the late 60s, early 70s, what was the weather like? Were you in average years of moisture, or either extreme?
I would say the only extreme moisture we had was in 1965, June, when we had the flood, and that went two ways. That went down the Arkansas, and that went down the Platte River and the Plum Creek River. But for the most part, I'd call it adequate average moisture. Sometimes modestly extreme on the winters. But you know, back then, during those times, the four seasons were pretty respectable on moisture. Challenging, you know, as we talked about the winters and stuff like that. But it comes with the territory. If you're going to be in the business of agriculture, you learn to adapt to with common sense. You learn to respect Mother Nature, and you know you're going to have your cold days, and you're going to have your blazing 100 degrees out there, horseback or in the hay fields.
Do you have a memory of working at the Phipps Ranch where you experienced one of those extremes you'd like to tell us about?
Which one? I mean, you know, there again, you know, like I say, when winter sets in, you know, you're out there keeping your trimester nutrition of your cows up so that by the time the calving does occur, the mother cow has adequate nutrition and health and to take care of her baby when she has given birth. And when that calf hits the ground, it has adequate colostrum and milk and an ample supply to carry it on to weaning. And so, you know, that takes getting out there in the cold. And I don't care. It doesn't matter how cold it is. You better be out there cubing it. You better be out there every day doing a head count. And turning it into Bud Morgan and Bob Swafford and Mr. Phipps. And you better be out there, you know, flaking the hay out from the back of a pickup on the different divisions of herds.
Head counts were done on horseback, I take it?
Horseback, you better be doing it. When you're in a pickup and you're cubing the cattle and handing the cattle, that guy behind that steering wheel better be counting. Because the guy that's sitting on the tailgate is trying to stay on the tailgate from down off, you know. And but that head count's very important.
How long does the weaning process take?
The roundup for weaning would take 5 to 7 days.
Okay, and that's typically
to go through the different herds.
This time of the year.
And weaning would be in October. We were spring calvers back then.
Spring calf weaning in October.
Yeah. And it was around the beginning of the 3rd week of October.
Okay. And going into the winter then, did the Phipps Ranch keep the cows a little closer to
you kept
HQ?
You kept the bulk of the herd was kept here at home, closer to the headquarters. Mm-hmm. And that just a given. And then at weaning, that's when we divided things up to the quarter circle bell, divided the calves up to the Comanche Creek, and then a few here at the home place. And then Gerald and Alan got a certain, they would buy a certain percentage of the heifers of
Why don't you explain for the camera who Gerald and Alan are?
Those are the brothers of Lawrence C. Phipps Jr.
Stepbrothers.
They had a ranch around that Gunnison, Colorado area, and it was a fabulous relationship, not only in cattle, but various investments right here in the Front Range of the Denver area. And, you know, of course, most people, well, maybe not this day and age, but remember Alan and Gerald on the Denver Broncos and the silent, a lot of people don't know about the silent partnership of Mr. Phipps.
I just drove by a building yesterday under construction. The construction company was G. Phipps.
Was it?
Gerald, yeah. And we understood, that that's the business that he chose to be in, among other things.
That's it. Like I say, these people were diversified, and that was good. The brothers were diversified. There again, back to like Bob Norris, diversified. Lassiter, diversified. You get back to the history of the 101 Ranch as a diversified operation.
Yeah, where was that?
Headquartered down in Texas. It did have land that went as far north as Oklahoma. And roughly in 1929 is when they ran into dire straits and things are broken up with the 101. Some of it still maintained together. But and then Bob Swafford came from the 101. He also did some work with the infamous XIT Ranch. And
And where was that? In
Texas.
Texas as well?
Mhm.
So was Texas the role model to some degree for the Phipps people in terms of how to run a cattle business?
In part, yes, because of the people. Mr. Phipps brought good people on board, and so naturally, but I like to say, I got a good education at Colorado State University. I got a better education from people born in the 1800s and early 1900s. I mean, hands-on.
Yeah.
And Mr. Phipps always encouraged your education, always encouraged that. They all did.
Yeah, I'd heard that from Mike O'Malley as well.
It's
he was very encouraging of that.
and to continue. You may graduate, but you continue. And yes, that experience that Bob Swafford had down in Texas, Mr. Phipps talked about it a lot.
Yeah. Did he work for a big ranch there?
The
The 101?
101 is one of the largest in its day in the nation. And the XIT is one of the largest in its day in the nation. And both of them very historical. The King Ranch down there, I don't know if Bob worked ever for the King Ranch.
Well, we've heard of the King Ranch.
It is still, King Ranch is still going.
To some degree, there's cars named after the King
Well,
Ranch.
yeah, like that Ford pickup, the King
pickup.
series.
And the King Ranch, I think, is where some of the Santa Gertrudis cattle
and the herd sire was Monkey.
The Cherokee Ranch brought up came from.
The King Ranch.
Yeah.
And the foundation herd sire of the Santa Gertrudis, which originated on the King Ranch, the bull is named Monkey. And the rest is history where the Rockefellers got involved with it. And many people, and I'll tell you what, I've had them in the feed yards, and you sell them, and they grade good. They're a good breed of cattle.
Well, let's move on from your high school days, whenever they needed work and you needed work, to what happened after that. So you graduated from Littleton High School in 1968.
In 1968.
What happened in your life after that?
Well, did my first 2 years of college at Ottawa University, Ottawa, Kansas. And there again, all my spring breaks, weekends, or anytime I was back here, I was back working on the Highlands Ranch. And summer is doing everything and anything throughout all the ranches. And then once I got out of the higher institutions, went to work full time. Then later I was transferred out to the Comanche Creek Ranch. And that was a tremendous experience, not only on the ranch, but the various ranchers around there. Yeah.
When you lived when you went to work for the Highlands Ranch after the educational stint, where did you live?
I lived in town until I got transferred out.
You had your own place?
Yeah.
And how long you were there until they assigned you to go down to the Comanche Creek Ranch?
Maybe a year and a half, 2 years.
What prompted that request to have you move down there?
Bob Swafford and Mr. Phipps called me in, and there was a situation that had occurred, and they thought by having me out there and Bob and Mr. Phipps here and Bud Morgan, if anything ranch-wise occurred in between the two ranches where I was at and there, we could keep better track on it on a weekly basis and if need to be on a daily basis. And just there's a situation occurred concerning cattle and some cattle that died, and they thought we'd keep a better handle on, keep an eye on things.
So for people who don't know, relative to where the Highlands Ranch is, where is the Comanche Creek Ranch?
It is east and north of Kyle, Colorado.
Which is southeast from the Highlands Ranch. Which is southeast.
Because it's on the road to Lyman, Colorado, and
which is pretty much straight east from here.
Yeah, that's the way I look at it. Pretty much straight east. It's the Comanche Creek Ranch on the upper level where the house was and the barns. To the west side, maybe 1,000 feet, was where the Comanche Creek went. Now down below the bluffs is this big, beautiful valley of the Bijou, one of the forks of the Bijou, and that was dynamic. I mean, you come up over off over the bluffs and all that. It is beautiful. I mean, you see God's creation looking up that valley. Yeah.
When you were there, relative to the size of the Highlands Ranch, how large was the Comanche Creek Ranch?
17,000.
And how did that compare to the Highlands Ranch at the time?
Oh, the Highlands Ranch, I'd say collectively, we're around 45,000 acres.
Okay, so smaller but substantial.
Oh, yeah, substantial, and just like the Quarter Circle Bell, I think was around 11,000 acres, but a very substantial ranch. And what made it substantial was not just the acreage, but the quality of grass.
Yeah. Because you had water flowing through.
Yeah, we had water. We had good water wells, and
how deep were the wells?
Not deep at all compared to nowadays when we have to drill. A deep well then was 300. I'd say an average 150, unless you're down by the Plum Creek. I think our windmill down to Plum Creek was 15, 20 feet. You know, we had an artesian well down on Plum Creek.
Yeah.
And on the south side of the Plum Creek.
At the Highlands Ranch, they've got the classic windmill up at the top of the hill.
Yeah, there used to be two up there.
The stone structure.
Uh-huh.
Have you ever heard how deep that well was?
No.
Given it's at the top of the hill.
Yeah.
And the hill isn't that close to the Platte River or the Plum Creek.
Or the aquifer.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it has to be deep. No, I haven't heard what the depth. If I did, I forgot it.
I'd never heard the depth. I wondered if you knew.
And the late Roy Forrester, he was a guru on knowing well depths of the ranch. And if he was alive, he could quickly tell us right off the top of his mind. And you're right. You're sitting on top of a hill, and you wonder if there's a water dome there. As far as the aquifer, that aquifer is down there. There's some depth there.
This is the Ogallala Aquifer, the big one?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's, as you well know, that's that aquifer. I serve on the water board, Upper Arkansas River Water Board in Kansas with Kansas Water. And that is a very challenged aquifer that we're trying to save.
That's been going down.
It's been going down, yes, and we're trying to preserve it. And we're trying to come in and not do just new water technology, drag lines and bubble irrigation to conserve water, but municipalities. We're like the city of Garden City has come across. They're utilizing new technology to try to conserve that water. Some of it comes out of the hydrology lab at Colorado State University. Kansas State, Texas A&M is expanding into that. Very critical. Well, the population of the Front Range challenges that.
Well, water has always been an important factor in the growth of the West.
Yes.
Without water, you don't grow as much.
And a lot of range wars have occurred over water.
That they have.
And you go in your history books of the 1800s, early 1900s, right here in Colorado, people died. And now we just fight it out in court, but the water wars are still going on.
Okay, so getting back to the Comanche Ranch, you were there to keep an eye out
and we had 300 head of heifers constantly there. I mean, every weaning season, and bring them up to a heavier weight. They're heifers, so about 6.5. At that time, heifers went about 6.5. Now both steer and heifers. Because of the cheap cost of gain, you bring them up to around 8 weights, 8.5.
What type of cattle were these?
These were beautiful genetics of lineback Herefords.
I'm sorry, one more time?
Real excellent genetics of Hereford cattle.
Of Hereford.
Mm-hmm.
The white face?
Yeah, the white face and when I say lineback, the dorsal lineback.
Was that the only brand that he was running at that point?
The only breed? Yeah. Well, yeah, that was only one winter. He bought about 600 head of 5-weight cattle, and in separate pasture there on some other 5-weight Herefords. He put them out on alfalfa pasture down there at the Plum Creek, and it didn't work. They just about went out the same weight that they came in, And they said, we'll never do that again. I'll never own another Angus again. You know? And Angus is a top quality breed. I mean, they're dominating.
Were they black Angus?
Yeah. Yeah, they're.
But they didn't achieve the
They didn't achieve
the weight gains.
And weight gains, and then too, you put cattle, you pasture winter pasture cattle on alfalfa. And everybody looks at it, well, it's a good protein source, it's a good fiber source, but you got to manage it. You got to supplement it good with a good vitamin package out there, a good package, calcium phosphorus package out there, and you know, keep it supplied out there.
So how long did you stay at the Comanche Ranch?
I about a year and a half, and you could see things were going to start to sell. You know, with Mr. Phipps's health, and I went to work for LIttleton Large Animal Clinic.
Mr. Phipps died in the spring of 1976, and I understand at least in the 6 months prior to that, his health was taking a nosedive.
It was, yes.
What do you recall?
In summer of 1972 and 73, well, I'll tell you, you know, his lungs were heavily taxed, and which would tax his heart. But you get that summer heat, and the humidity structure changed around here with Chatfield Reservoir going in, so your air was heavier. And he struggled with breathing. And in 1973, that's why, you know, you could see that this ranch was going to stay in the family. You know, you could just feel it. And that's why I made choices to, you know, if he was 10, 15 years younger, I'd have been there forever, you know, so to speak. But then, like I said, I offered a tremendous experience with Dr. Beeman, Vale, and Swanson.
So you left at some point in 73, 74?
Yeah, 73, I think it was.
73.
Yeah.
What brought you to the Littleton Large Animal Clinic?
The charisma of Dr. Beeman, Vale, and Swanson.
Did you know Dr. Beeman?
Yeah, they were on our horses back when I was a kid. Charlie Vale was our veterinarian for our horse operation.
That was Dr. Beeman's partner?
Yeah. Yes, and have you ever thought of working for us? And I said, is that an offer?
They approached you.
Yeah, and Charlie had that Charlie Vale grin, and I said, when do you guys start? And he says, tomorrow morning. You know, and that was good. And and that was a fabulous education. That was a fabulous experience to be around those people. I mean, these are the top guns of large animal veterinary medicine. They're known throughout the country. And
what did you do for them?
I helped them out in surgery. I did post-op, did pre-op. We did field calls and traveled the countryside.
Were you working primarily on the cattle side or the horse side or both?
More on horse. I mean, that was the primary clientele of Littleton Large Animal Clinic was horses. We got a call from the Denver Zoo one time, and it one evening there was a sick lion at the Denver Zoo, and the office called MV1, which is Marvin. You know, can you go out to the Denver Zoo? They got a sick lion. No, you know, Marvin said, I'm busy. And then it went to Charlie Vale, MV2, and it goes down the radio line, got this, MV6, and, you know, nobody wanted to work on a line. And that's the first time and the only time I ever heard them ever decline a call. And I'm sitting there going, oh, thank you, God. You know, I didn't want to help out. And probably the wildest venture that was doing buffalo, Buzard gravel pit there on the south side of Littleton on the old Santa Fe Drive. He had a couple of buffalo. He had a sick buffalo heifer. And Butch Messer and I took the evening call on it. And extreme diarrhea, dehydrated. It was dehydrated severely. I mean, one of those deals, why didn't you call us 2 weeks ago? And better chance of saving the animal. But the heavy pin to the west was this big buffalo bull. And it was getting agitated because we're fooling around with this heifer. Yeah. And it would hit this big tree that was in that pen. And it would shake the ground. That bull would look at us and it'd charge that tree and it'd hit it, ram it. And Butch goes, I'm going to tell you right now, Dixon, you're on your own when it comes through that fence because I'm getting out of here, you know. So we had our exciting moments, but good moments. Good people that we covered.
Okay, we have resumed. We were talking about your experience working with the buffalo, sick buffalo, when you worked for the Littleton Large Animal Clinic down at Santa Fe and C470. Any other stories or memories from your experience working there?
Every day was I'm serious, every day was a wonderful experience. A fabulous bunch of doctors, a fabulous bunch of office staff. And then the various clientele, new clientele, you're meeting new people every day. And then you're maintaining contact with established clients. And it was when you got up, you were excited about going to work. And you weren't anxious to get home in a hurry at nights. Every day was a whole new wonderful adventure. I mean, you're with the best people.
Did you go on many clients' calls with Dr. Beeman?
Mostly with at first Dr. Michael Martin, who is from Texas, and then Butch Messer. On occasion with Charlie Vale, Terry Swanson, and several. Yes, and I'd on occasion go on calls with Dr. Beeman. And those were wonderful experiences.
Tell me about that.
There again, there was an excellent relationship, and his philosophy on life. He was definitely a mentor in my life. With that group, there isn't hardly a day it doesn't go by I don't reflect upon the learning experience, but also the relationship. A tremendous, wonderful relationship with Dr. Beeman. And
anything specific come to mind that you learned from working with Dr. Beeman? Detail.
Don't get in a hurry. Detail. And you may think you're on top of something, but review it up here in your head. And, because nothing's 100% perfect in life. And you're going to make mistakes, but you try to minimize those mistakes. But, have focus in life. And that's not just with working with animal surgeries, preventive medicine, all that, but everything you do in life. Focus. And keep life in perspective. And don't get. And if you get beat up, pick yourself up off the ground, and keep moving forward. Keep a positive attitude, and that is the theme of all of them. Keep a positive attitude, no matter how beat up you get.
How long did you work for Littleton Large?
I would say not long enough. I would say not quite a year. And then International Cattle Systems, DeKalb Grain, built a brand new, at that time, a 45,000 head feed yard. It's now about 165,000 head feed yard. But Stratford, Texas Incorporated and DeKalb Grain owned that. And I kept getting calls for about 6 months. And that was a hard choice because they offered me a tremendous amount of wages to take over head of doctoring down there and also head of the cattle department, because you're leaving people you're just immensely close to.
How did they find you, or how did they know about you? Any idea?
That's a good question. No, I don't know.
Somebody
said something, and they'd call the house at night. We didn't have cell phones back then, right. And like I say, it was 6 months because you're working for the best of people. Good people, good human beings.
Did any of the offers get progressively better?
Oh yeah, they're constantly increasing the wages, the benefit packages, and all that kind of stuff. But it's still, money can't buy happiness. But I did eventually take it, and it started a whole new chapter in my life too. And
How old were you at the time?
I was 23, about ready to turn 24. I turned 24 within a few weeks after I came on board at Grant County.
Just a pup.
Just a pup.
Did you have a family at that point?
Oh, no, I didn't get married until I was 27. I don't think I started having kids until I was 32.
So you were relatively free to go.
I was, yes, I was free-spirited and free to go.
Motivated by the challenge?
Motivated, yes, definitely. It's like I say, I had fed cattle. I had cattle in the feedlot with partnerships like my parents and other people, small partnerships. And but mainly my background was cow-calf operation. I'll tell you what, you go from the psychology of a cow-calf operation to a large commercial feedlot, that's a whole different psychology. And you travel at a different pace. And you're about traveling at the speed of sound, and it's like flying a fighter jet. There's no room for mistakes. The margin of error is very narrow. And
yeah, so you've stayed in the cattle business all your life, haven't you?
It grows on you.
To some degree?
Kind of like a horse. No, it's a love. It's a compassion. Bob Swafford once told me, and it's very true. He said, it can be the most godforsaken business you can be in. It can be very bloody. And he said, sometimes you're not a true cattleman until you lost your tail at least 5 times. But also, when you sit down and reflect, it can be one of the most blessed, rewarding experiences of your life. And that's true.
So you've been in the cattle business really for all of your professional life at this point. You're like me, you're 68 years old at this point. I take it you are not retired yet.
I can't picture me ever retiring. I don't ever want to. I like golfing, but there's only so much golfing. I like fishing, fly fishing, that is. There's only so much. My energy comes from being around the industry, the cattle industry and the beef industry, being around people.
Tell me about your favorite member or most. Tell me about your professional accomplishments in your career you feel the best about. You've had a long history in the cattle business for almost an entire lifetime of a career. What are you most proud of?
The people that I've been around. Because it's not an I and me in this world. It's a team, and it's a we factor. I couldn't do what I do today if it wasn't for the great people I've been blessed with. It's.
And have you had an opportunity to mentor people yourself?
Yes, and and you reflect back about how you were mentored.
Tell me about that.
And taking new people into the cow-calf. You learned. You take what you didn't like with people you might have come across, and like short tempers and stuff like that, and you go, well, I didn't like that, and I'd bulk up, and so if I act like this, they're going to bulk up too, and they're going to feel defeated. You don't want anybody to feel defeated. Defeat's part of life, failure's part of life, but you want them to pick themselves up like we were talking earlier, and you want them to. Say, hey, I can conquer this, and you try to give them the self-confidence. My goodness, you try to give them the self-confidence to keep moving forward and know that they have your support, that you have their back. And anybody can scream and yell at somebody. I'll tell you what, a fabulous general manager of Fairley Feed Yards. We had some cowboys that were upset at another cowboy, and rumor got around to the general manager, Gary Battles, that, these guys wanted this guy fired and all that. And I never even thought about firing the guy, but I'm up there at the desk one evening doing my paperwork and medical reports and stuff like that. And out of the clear blue sky, Gary goes by me and heading towards his office, put his hands on my right shoulder, and he's kind of looking towards his office, and he says, Dixon, anybody can fire a person, but it takes a true leader to take that person that other people want fired and help them seek the potential that they have. stuck with me, you can tell. And Gary Battles now lives in Aurora, Colorado, and he was a cattleman's cattleman. Like Bob Swapper, he was a cattleman's cattleman. And Gary Battles, I'll tell you what, he was a leader. He could be rough and tough on you, but he's finding out what you were made out of. If you're man enough to step up to the plate. Fantastic cattleman. Floyd Fairley, that owned the different operations, another fantastic man.
Going back to Mr. Phipps, he was one of your mentors.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Your favorite memories of Mr. Phipps?
Being in his study there and sitting down with me and explaining the different feed programs he's looking at a year ahead. And I assume he pretty well knew where he was going. I know but he offered me the opportunity to express what I thought. He's stimulating my mind to think. And then two, on the road, you have a lot of windshield time there. Yeah. And
where were you traveling when you traveled with him?
Oh, it could be downtown Denver. It could be one of the ranches. It could be to the Quorum.
Quorum was a restaurant downtown Denver?
Yeah, down by the Capitol.
And he used that often?
Often. He used it where the atmosphere fit the design of what he was going forth for. And it depends on the people that he wanted. It could be some people from out of state. It could be people maybe out of the state of Colorado. And he overseas, like the Japanese. He could use the Hilton. And there's another place, had red velvet walls. And it was a steak place. Downtown Denver.
Broker Restaurant was popular in the 70s.
And this place went clear back in the 60s because my parents said we ate there several times. But places like that where you're kind of away from things, where you can visit and you can brainstorm, but also you can form relationships. And it's like all those people said, from my parents, grandparents, Bob Swafford, the Phippses, the little to large animal clinic doctors. Building relationships is an important factor of one's life. Mm-hmm. And so, you're building relationships, business relationships that later becomes friendships, maybe. Good solid friendships.
When you worked at the Phipps Ranch, particularly your full-time employment there, do any events come up that were terribly notable? Involving other people, celebrities, parties, events, things?
The one, he had some celebrities here, but the ones, the Japanese are the ones, when we sold it's like roughly 69, 150 head to Japan, it's the first time I ever seen a big charter bus driving through pastures. And he had Bob Swafford, he was a professional rodeo cowboy in his younger days, and they wanted to see Bob Swafford rope a calf, and on the front pasture, he roped a calf, first loop, and the Japanese just went wild, and like say you got this big, humongous bus out there, chartered bus. Never ever pictured a big chartered bus out in the middle of a pasture, and I mean they weren't taking the trails either, but. That really stuck into my mind. But there's so many good experiences. Every day was there again, like LIttleton Large Animal. Every day was a good experience. Even that time I fell out of the windmill and John Pearl fell out on top of me and broke my ribs. We still laugh about that.
Why don't you tell us how that happened?
We're down section 16 servicing the top air motor of a windmill.
Where is section 16?
That's just directly west of the headquarters of the castle, of the mansion. And we had corrals down there, but we had an old wooden tower windmill. And everything went quick and smooth up there, getting the...
Was there a platform to work?
Yeah, there's a wooden platform and all that, and if an accident occurs there, you fall off that. But not this case. We finished up, and I'm climbing down ahead of John, and the rung across, the old wooden rung, it broke. It was rotted. And man, I fell and I went down on my back. And about the time I hit on my back, a wooden rung broke on John Perero, and he fell on top of me. And that's when he cracked a couple of ribs here. And he goes, "Oh, Roy, I thank you for breaking my fall." You know.
And your ribs.
And my ribs, you know.
Yeah. No, good memories. I know it's been a great place for a lot of people to work and live, those things. One of the names that comes up for docents at Highlands Ranch these days is Marion Morgan.
Everybody's
Do
grandmother.
you have some experience with Marion?
Yes, they're again close family friends, and then, like I say, a lot of times after Dad died, Marion would have us out there for dinner, stuff like that, and
Marion was Bud Morgan's wife.
right.
Bud was the foreman or general manager.
Right, Rick
area
and Bob
there
Swafford,
for a lot of
yeah.
years at this point.
And
What can you tell me about Marion other than being a good cook? And,
she, like I say, she's everybody's grandmother, and she had so much love and compassion in her heart. She always had time to visit. Always had a glass of ice water or iced tea for you, maybe a pop, and you know, just sincerely interested in your life.
I take it that she must have had a special relationship with Mr. Phipps. There's not too many people who are allowed to stay after the death of a principal like Mr. Phipps in the house there as long as she stayed.
The Phipps family, really, you know, people who gave themselves to the operation and day-to-day life, Mr. Phipps took care of them. And Mrs. Morgan, Marion Morgan, she would do a lot of stuff up there at the mansion with Mr. Phipps for the Phipps family. Well, the Phipps kids were her kids, and Mr. Phipps took care of people. If you were honest and straight with him, he took care of you. At the Comanche Creek Ranch, Bill Reed had cancer, and
Who was Bill Reed? Was he a manager there?
yeah, he was the ranch manager there, and you know, has to be phased in. And he's, you know, but there was never any thought of removing him from the ranch or the house, just like Marion, you know, to her death, you know. He cared for people. He you know, just because you can't do your job anymore because of health or your age and all that, he didn't throw you out to the wolves. If you were honest and sincere and all that, and he took care of people. And you know, not just concerning the ranch, but there's many unsung stories in greater Colorado of people, homeless people, people that didn't have food, people needed medical care. He did it quietly. He didn't want the limelight on him. He took care of people, you know.
I've heard that Thanksgiving was a big deal around the ranches during the Phipps eras.
Thanksgiving.
Did you participate in any of those?
Oh, you bet. Yeah, you
Tell
bet.
me
It was one of those deals. Yeah, you better show up, or else, you know.
Tell me
that's
your
what-
experience.
And it was, you know, you take like there at the headquarters, you have this big, long table. And it's you know, it's kind of like just traditional farm and ranch family from many generations. But you'd be there and you'd all be laughing and sharing stories. And, you know, it wasn't just about the tremendous good food, but it was the fellowship. And it was just, you know, where you had a chance to relax and enjoy each other, reminisce, and tell stories about, you know, a cow that might have mauled you, or falling out of windmills and things like that, or picking up a hay bale and a baled live bull snake was in there striking you on your shafts, you know. But also talking about your families and sharing about your families and with your families, and you all were family at that dinner table.
I understand Thanksgiving was kind of an all-hands affair,
Oh yes,
and I was told that it was always held not in the mansion per se, but in the Cowboys' bunkhouse
Right.
dining room.
yeah, the big dining room, and that was very appropriate, really,
And everyone came.
yeah, yep, it was good times.
What other memories do you have of your time at the Phipps Ranch that you think we'd like to know about?
You had the opportunity of working with some of the finest genetics of cattle at that time existing, some of the finest ranch hands. Then, like I say, we had people come down from Saskatchewan, Canada, Quebec, Canada, to go to work there. And some didn't last long. Some lasted maybe the 4 seasons. With me though is the opportunity to really learn the cattle business.
And you did.
And yes.
And it stuck.
Yeah.
Because
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Because you made a career out of it.
It's
which you're still doing, even to this day.
and you take like the animal health experience. Dr. Beeman once made a statement about the interns on vets, my dad also made the same statement too. But you got to get them out of college and kind of retrain them to the real world. Mm-hmm. And bottom line, I learned the real world of animal health through the Dr. Beeman, Vale Swanson. I learned the real world of cattle, starting with not only my grandparents, but the Phipps organization, the Highlands Ranch organization, and the people. The people, like we're talking earlier, the different ranches, the Sinclair Ranch you were involved with because of the Phipps Ranch, the Freddie White's Ranch, the Falcon Sperry Ranch, the King Carroll Ranch, that relationship. And, it's so important to see things from another person's viewpoint, to see experiences from other person's experiences. That's where you learn. That's part of the road to learning.
Paul, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. You mentioned that you got the opportunity to bowl. we looked at the bowling alley. Tell us about that.
Well, I never seen a bowling alley quite like that before in my life. I've never seen balls that small, And I went. It was one evening.
Were they not full-size bowling balls?
No, they were only about that big, and I think they're wooden. And hardwood, they're heavy or something. But, and of course that lane is narrow, and I maybe did it for at 30 minutes at best, and then I ventured on. And it was neat to experience the old-fashioned, the old school, old century school of bowling. And it's good to have that, to have a different experience like that. It just wasn't the same as going down the Broadway Bowl. Does that even exist anymore? Broadway bowling lanes?
I don't think so.
But back in the last century, it went down the Broadway Bowl. No. But it was good to see that. It was good to, because I've heard about those kind of things. People talking. Well, back in the old days, I got to see what back in the old days looked like. I got to experience a little bit of it. But you had you didn't have an automatic pin setter. You had to set up the pins, and if you're lucky to get a volunteer to set the pins up and pick the ball up and roll it down, if I'm going to work that hard, I'd just soon have it be with cattle.
Yeah, we heard that when anybody came in as a visitor, that they got the opportunity to set the pins.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's
as part of a break-in, a new person.
Not fun.
You get to be the pin setter.
Oh shoot. Yeah. It's but like I say, it's a good experience. And there again, going back to dinner table talk, you reminisce and you bond and you reflect, and it's those are memories that build your heritage, and your character.
Well, in our tour earlier today with Matt Clough, who is the current rancher at the facility, we had the opportunity to walk through a number of the outbuildings of the ranch. And I was surprised and I was not surprised how much memories came back to you during that visit of your memories of those buildings.
Is a very important part of my life. The people, very important part of my life. The experiences where you're getting beat up by a horse or a cow, very important, memorable part of my life. I have no regrets. I absolutely have no regrets. And it was a pleasure to meet Matt and the people that we knew and people that we still work with in the industry. But there again, that's what life should be about, is the experiences we have with other people and the experiences we have in the industry, clear across the board. Good, bad, or ugly, it all serves a good purpose.
Okay, last call. Paul, any more questions for you?
I do. One of the people we talked about is Marion, and they have built the mansion now. They put an addition just inside the mansion grounds. We walked through it. It was not spring, so you wouldn't have noticed, but they call it Marion's Garden.
That did my heart good. You play upon words, she was the garden of life. That represents Marion's life, because she was the garden of life. There was something always blooming in her. There was something always blossoming. Like I say, she cared. It was no act. She sincerely cared. She had a lot of love in her heart and a lot of compassion. And she always had time. So, Mark, when you told me that this morning, that sent a nice, good, very deep, warm, penetrating feeling in me. And that is so deserving.
Did she actually have a garden in that area? Would she plant?
No, that was football field. No, that was grass. That was all lawn.
That was all lawn?
Yeah.
Okay.
And, we'd play football on it. But, that was totally done for her, 100%. She had a garden at her place and stuff like that, and she loved gardening. But there again, what a way to honor and remember a person like Marion, and to put a creation like that together, Marion's Garden. And like I say, to use the word garden, because she, besides, the physical garden, and stuff like that, she was a garden of life.
Yeah. Okay, it's good.
Okay, I think we're to the point of wrapping up. You get the last word if you wish.
This has been quite a special moment in my life. You people.
The whole day.
Yeah, the whole day. And you people and all the people you introduced me to, very wonderful people, I'll take this to my grave in a very wonderful, pleasant way.
It's been special for us too, because you are living history. You can relate what it was like, and we can just imagine, because we weren't there at the time, and our history is important to us here in this community, and you help fill in the blanks. So we wanted to thank you for doing that.
Well, my thanks are to you all.
I mean, you drove out here 5 hours in the middle of the night, early morning from Kansas, just for the opportunity to tour a ranch you worked at 50 years ago.
Whew, boy, 50 years ago.
So you must care.
It's a half a century ago.
So you must care a little bit about this place, like we do too.
Well, I'm glad you worried about that word care. One of the things growing up is, my granddad and my dad always said, when you work for an operation, you treat it as if it was your own. You work for the Highlands Ranch or LIttleton Large Animal Clinic, you treat it as if it was your own, and you give it your all. Yeah. And
good philosophy of life.
Yeah, and it is. But there again, on the other side of this coin, I was blessed. With the people of the Highlands Ranch. I was blessed with the people of LIttleton Large Animal Clinic. I was blessed with the adjoining ranchers. I mean, Not everybody has that opportunity, has that privilege,
How true.
and so,
We thank you for the opportunity to share your memories with us today.
well, thank you.
And we'll send this one down to the History Research Center. And they'll publish it, and hopefully other people will be able to enjoy your stories as well.
Well, thank you.
So thank you again.